Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Change is Key. Really excited to have this guest today. He is a mindset coach from Donegal, living in Dubai at the moment. And so really excited to have him on. It should be a really interesting conversation. Johnny, thanks a million for joining me, first of all.
Cheers, Shane. It's an absolute pleasure, and it's a little bit past my bedtime here on the Dubai side, so
Yeah,
don't mind if I'm sound a little bit sleepy.
That's grand. Yeah, we'll keep the time difference in mind. So do you want to just tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what you're about?
Yeah, so like you just mentioned there, so I'm doing a lot of coaching here. I'm in Dubai doing one-on-one coaching, group coaching, everything around coaching, but the majority of the work I do is online. So I'm working with people in Australia, Ireland, America, wherever it be. Originally from Donegal, like you touched on, from Gidor, the God's country. So I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's well worth a visit. Originally a teacher, qualified as a teacher, did my training as a teacher. And as time went on, I kind of just found an real interest in maybe the psychology of how people are working. First of all, probably in sports people, like how sports people, how they have that extra edge or what makes them tick. And just from that and personal experience from maybe dealing with um, ups and downs in my own life, I came across the personal development path, and it really, really interested me, resonated with me, kind of lit a little fire in my belly. And, you know, although the teaching wasn't maybe the biggest passion I had, I like love teaching. I love when kids like get that aha moment. But then I could see that kind of translating over to helping adults with kind of day-to-day problems or overcoming any fears or obstacles or barriers that they're facing, and having them get that aha moment. And kind of at the minute, it's something that just really gets me up in the morning. So as that drive and that passion for that's there, I'm going to ride that wave as long as I can.
Yeah, brilliant. That sounds great. So just to go back to the teaching for a second, what subjects were you teaching?
Well, I my higher diploma is in primary education, so it would be all subjects. Now I just did my training at home. I did very little teaching at home in Ireland. I just taught in 2 or 3 schools in Gidor just to do my training, to do my dip, and I was basically on the first flight out of Ireland to get to the UAE to start teaching out here. And I've heard, and from my small amount of experience and at home and my couple of years experience in the UAE, I can see that there's a massive, it's just two completely different animals, two different games. So maybe if I didn't get that flight to the UAE, I would still be maybe more passionate for that side of things that maybe I currently am.
Yeah, I get you. And you know, when you say you hadn't maybe got the kind of passion for teaching the way you have the passion for what you're doing now, was it that you just didn't enjoy the teaching? Was it the schools you were in, or you just didn't think it was the right path for you?
No, like see, when I was at home, I like really I loved it. And you had great teachers, like the principals that I worked under, they were great role models. They were men you could look up to, because they were obviously leading a team, but they were able to have the banter, they were able to communicate well, they were able to make people feel at ease and make it a real kind of bonded team in every school I was in. And it was great. I really loved that. And I think just kind of maybe I always go back to, I kind of went to college too young, so I didn't know where I was going from the off go. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I did my leaving cert. So I kind of fell into that, kind of into UCD to do an arts program, and then just to follow what kind of basically everyone else was following. I was like a sheep following, okay, most of the lads on the football team are doing teaching. I'll do teaching too. So I went down, started training to be a teacher. And I found myself going to workshops, although I love the teaching side and I would consider myself a very, very good teacher. Um, just the kind of the training aspect, it nearly bored me. And I felt like, I don't know, the training just didn't do it for me. And then when I moved to the Middle East, yeah, it was a completely different ball game. And you see that it's just not all teaching. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of different things that's actually not actually aimed at the students, or maybe it could be a business rather than at home. In Ireland, it's completely student focused on the development of the child. There's a lot of different things. So I wouldn't say that I have no passion for teaching. Like anything you do in life is you're essentially teaching if you're helping someone. Like I have a massive passion for teaching, but just actual as a primary school teacher, I don't know if that suits me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'm always interested in people who talk about teaching the way you've spoken about it there, because I've spoken to lots of people before who kind of have a similar experience to you. They're not being sure what to do coming out of leaving cert, and then nearly the pressure of going into college, and the kind of reputation of a college like UCD as well. And then this real Irish thing then of like, oh, you're not sure what to do, just do teaching. Did you find there was that kind of pressure, like from the outside, from people?
Yeah, no, like I was almost like I was when I finished UCD, especially, I was probably only 20, 21. And then all of a sudden people expect, right, where's your car? Where's your savings? Like you're expected to have these big things. And I didn't give a shit about having a car or having savings at the time. Like, so that kind of pressure, although it's not people really forcing it on you, but it's that kind of stigma that's floating around. That's that expectations in the air. So that kind of probably pushed me to kind of go off the rails a wee bit, looking for the escapes. Because I remember when I was training as a teacher, the only thing I was entitled to was a jobs bridge package, which I was getting like €45 a week. And as a training teacher, you have to buy your own resources, make your own resources, and survive. Although I was living at home, but like I remember having to go to a mate's house to play. We had a little friendly poker game on a Monday night with that €45 and pay 20 in, hoping to cash to get
Yeah.
an extra little bit of money. Then I would go to the local pub on like Tuesday to play the big game, try and cash there, and that would kind of bankroll me for my month of teaching. And like that's not healthy. Like, and I don't get how they would expect a trainee, a young person coming through, like to give them peanuts and expect to make magic with it. And then sure, that just turned into frustration and drinking at the weekend and stuff like that. And I've been doing a lot of research, probably the research that I've been doing into just psychology and kind of mental health and things like this. It was interesting article I did come across, and then I did a lot more fishing into it myself, both in Ireland and in the UAE. The majority of people who suffer with mental health problems in professions, or suffer with, like, say, alcoholism or anything like that, are actually teachers coming from Ireland. Like the number of teachers coming from Ireland that would be example in the likes of an AA meeting, there's a relatively high percentage that are an Irish teacher in that. So that should kind of nearly shine a spotlight that there's something wrong somewhere along the way that should be fixed.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff you're talking about there of coming through as a trainee and stuff, I've never really heard anyone say that before. all you really hear in conversations about teaching is like, oh, they get these holidays and they get, weekends off and they get this, that, and the other. But I've never really heard anybody say that. That's a perspective you never see highlighted. Why
Like,
why do you think there is that kind of attitude towards teachers?
that was just my particular circumstance. Like, I know other teachers who came out and like for their dip year that they actually got a full-time job and were probably getting paid a decent amount of money. I can imagine it was a good amount of money, because I don't know what the pay scale is at home, because I've been gone that long. I'm not really interested in even finding out, because it's not my plan to return to it. But people who have been in the job for years are complaining that the pay is not good. So I can imagine a trainee teacher would be good. And I was actually talking to a group of teachers the last day. I was doing a bit of coaching with a group of teachers, and one guy kind of stood up and he's like, "Yeah, but the teaching profession, is that not a pillar of society?" And another guy was like, "Yeah, back in the 1970s." So it kind of shows that, yeah, once upon a time, like, a teacher was, this big thing to go for, like,
It's that
back
kind
in
of
the day.
thing. Sorry to
Yeah,
cut
like,
across. To cut across. It's that.
yeah,
Sorry to cut across. Yeah, I was just going to say it's that thing of like the teacher, the guard, and the solicitor, sort of, isn't it? It's that sort of those kind of three pillars.
and the priest.
And the priest. Yeah.
If the family is one of them, they're doing well in the eyes of everyone else, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, it's like a status thing, isn't it? It's like it's if somebody's son or daughter is one of those, it's like look at my son or daughter, showing them off kind of thing, isn't it?
But like, me and my girlfriend Catherine, we were going for a walk there a couple of weeks ago, and I remember like saying, if you kind of took a step back when you were going into teaching and maybe looked at like the majority of, like I say, get a big massive pool of teachers and look at their lives and look at, say, what they had in their homes. If that's like, if you thought, okay, if I become a teacher, I'm a pillar of society, like the stigma's brushing it up to be. If you looked around and actually got the facts that, okay, there's a handful of them that are, struggling with debt, there's a lot struggling with drink, there's a lot. Whereas if you looked at another profession where actually the majority is quite happy, they're actually living more free lives, you'd be more inclined to go down that path. Like, no one would go down a path where, it's, you're going to have repercussions in the future now. And listen, this is me not tarring everyone with the same brush. This is again coming from my perspective, and my
Of course, yeah.
perspective only, my experience, because like there are a hell of a lot of fantastic teachers out there doing great things. Like, and I was lucky enough to have a couple of great ones while I was training, and that's what kind of keeps my faith alive in it. It's but I'm happy I had them as role models and to get experience off, but I'm kind of more grateful for having experience of the bad ones too, because getting experience of the bad leaders or the terrible leaders, horrible bosses, horrible teachers, that's where you learn, okay, Jesus, I don't want to do that. I don't, that's where you learn what to avoid. That's potholes, you learn what to avoid. So you kind of need to be grateful for seeing the dark side and the bright side of everything.
Yeah, like just when you're saying that, I'm thinking about some of the teachers I had, like in secondary school, and uh, I mean, I'm the same. I think everyone's probably the same. Some good ones, some bad ones. But I mean, and I think you're right. It's an interesting way to put it that, when you have a bad one or bad ones, you nearly learn as much from them. Like, I'm thinking about a teacher I had who, he taught business, and he would go around the class and he'd ask you what you wanted to be or what you wanted to do. And whatever answer you gave, he would make a judgment on that. No, you won't be that. Do something else. You're not going to make it as that, as an accountant or as, whatever. The next person might say, I want to be a teacher or have my own business or whatever. And he'd say, yeah, I could see you doing that. and he just gave this judgment one way or the other, and it would just, and he said to a couple of people that, you'll never do that, you won't do anything close to that, and you could see it just kind of knocked them back. But that's something that those people could learn as much from as a teacher who actually gave them encouragement.
But I've seen those kind of comments, and just even over the last couple of years, I spoke to a lot of Leaving Cert students as well, and about those comments. But a lot of people I coach, who have maybe fears of doing something, maybe just in their personal life, like going out socializing or going to football training or something. Every time we claw it back, it's a limiting belief that's stemmed from examples just like you gave there. Like a teacher saying something like that to a child as old or young, whatever way you want to look at it, as 17, could be taken passively or said passively, but you don't know how that child's going to take it. They might not realize how they took it at the time, but that's instilling a limiting belief in that person that might affect their life in different aspects. So a teacher has a massive responsibility in how they deal or how they speak to the child. It's like they're kind of molding their inner talk, and whether they could be either feeding that child's inner critic or feeding that child's inner champion. And that's really important. That maybe that teacher was having a bad day. Maybe that teacher was at a wedding and was on the beer all weekend and was just a bit groggy and didn't mean it. But you just don't know how people are going to take on words. That's the power of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is really powerful, and yeah, he could have we could give him the benefit of the doubt. He might have had a bad day or a bad weekend, but I mean, he could almost look at it as that's his way of kind of almost getting you to prove him wrong as well. That could, which could work for some people, but not necessarily for everybody, But and yeah, do you know when you're talking about your kind of inner talk and self-talk, the course I'm doing at the moment about life coaching, that obviously comes up a lot, and you can't believe until it's kind of called out in class how many limiting beliefs you have, or how much like threat talk that you have, negative self-talk, and sometimes you'll realize it and it's kind of called out in front of you, and you stop and go, actually, I am living in threat. I'm living in the threat of I better do this, or if I don't do this, such and such will happen, rather than the kind of positivity or reward of, by doing this, I benefit in such a way, and when you were going through your kind of, you mentioned ups and downs earlier around the teaching and stuff. Did you find your self-talk was quite negative?
Oh, it's horrible, actually.
Yeah.
You put on a brave face, because I always like especially around home, playing pranks or messing about and having the crack, but when you're on your own, it's actually scary looking back. It's just someone screaming at you. But the power of that inner critic or inner champion, the inner critic, he never goes away. I was listening to Paul Merson on a podcast speaking about his addictions the last day, and he said about his addictions that no matter how strong you're getting, your addictions are always outside your door doing press ups. So you just need to be strong enough as well. I always believe that they never go away. They're always going to be there. It just depends on how strong you strengthen your own support system, or how much exercise you give that inner champion inside you. An example I heard this week, Kevin McMenamin from Dublin, he won 4 man of the matches in a row in Leinster on the way to the Leinster final. And because I'm working closely with one of his close mates, and he shared the story. He's like, I won 4 man of the matches in a row, and I was going into the Leinster final asking myself, what am I doing on this team? The Brogans are here, whoever at A, B, and C are here. I don't deserve to be here. And the boys were like, man, you won 4 man of the matches in a row. But he was telling himself, oh, sure, they were shite teams. I'm going to play shit. Whoever's marking me in the final, they're going to roast me. I'm going to be hooked at halftime. I'm useless. he got hooked at halftime in that final. He got taken off. Like after winning 4 man of the matches in a row, his inner critic beat him, and that got the better of him on the day. Like, and that's, you know, people might think that's wishy-washy, like, but everyone has an inner critic, and it's probably, it's like everything, it's shining the spotlight on it or bringing your acknowledgement or awareness to it. That's the only way you're then going to be able to start to challenge it and weaken its foundation, shake the foundation, prove it wrong, and then that'll give more energy to the inner champion then.
Yeah, that's a crazy story about it. Like, I mean, he literally talked himself into, what turned out to be a bad performance
It's
there.
a self-fulfilling prophecy. So like where I was going to go with that, like I remember, I think it was, Jesus, I think it was the week before I was like fully qualified or had my final inspection, and I went away out with the boys on a Saturday night, and um I ended up like after a party taking one of my mates' parents' cars to drive down home, and I just kind of left it upside down in a field. Um, but I woke up the next morning and whatever. Eventually, my mates came over, and I kept saying these things to them like, "Oh, I'm a disaster. I'm a this, that, the other. I'm used like everything." But I kept playing that in my head for weeks and months. Like, and I kept saying to myself this thing, when's the next time I'm gonna mess up? When's the next time I'm gonna mess up? And this was going through my head. So because I was constantly asking myself that, like your brain doesn't know what's negative or what's real or what's false. All my brain was was hearing was when's the next time you're going to mess up. So all the other side of the brain was doing was looking for an opportunity to mess up. If you get me, you fulfilling prophecy. If you're asking for it, you will get it. It's like I was saying, I asked someone this week what do they want, and they gave me a list of what they don't want. I don't want to be a fat anymore. I don't want to be in debt. Your brain doesn't take in that what you don't want. Like you don't go to the grocery shop with a list of things you don't want, because the odds of you getting the grocery that you did want is very slim. You make it something, but you're not going to get the whole list. As if you went to the grocery shop with a list of what you do want, you're going to get everything. So you need to look at it from that kind of way as well. Stop thinking about what you don't want, and think about what you do want, and that's where your brain's going to focus. Like where energy goes, what is it? Where your mind goes, energy flows.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, and that's a really good way of putting it as well. The grocery thing. That's something I'll keep that and use that for myself. But when we're talking in class about some of this kind of stuff, I mean, sometimes our instructor will kind of call on somebody and ask them for an example of sort of use them as a volunteer of how to flip a self-limiting belief they might have into a more positive reward-based one. I remember in one of the first classes when we had kind of little to no knowledge of coaching, she called out somebody and said, give me one of your goals or one something you want to achieve or something you're working on right now. And the person said, I want to be less, I think it was, I want to be less anxious or something like that. Okay, so if you were less anxious, what would that give you more of? Well, I think I'd be less, scrambling around. Okay, so what would that give you more of? I'd be less this, and every answer was, I'd be less this, and I would do less of that. And it's amazing how your mind won't let you kind of latch on to the, well, what can I get more of? What can I do more of? How can I work towards what I actually want? It's just so focused on avoid this, don't do that. And then that's where you end up, I think what you're saying, it's nearly looking for an opportunity and to mess up.
Yeah, like I was doing a limiting belief session there 3 weeks ago with a guy, and we did a bit of exploring about all the different kind of limiting beliefs he had, and then eventually I said, great, sum these up for me. So his limiting belief was, I believe I have a bad memory. So we started to shake that foundation anyway, and I was asking him, okay, is there any other aspects in your life that you believe this to be true? And he told me then that he was in a band. He was a lead singer of a band. They play 2 or 3 nights a week. So they play 15 to 20 songs of a set each night, different songs. So what, over the course of a week, that's 100 different songs that he knows off by heart. So we kind of highlighted that. I was like, how do you know 100 songs off by heart if your memory's bad? And he kind of went, fucking hell. So I was like, how do you learn those songs? He's like, well, I listen to them on my podcast, but I read the lyrics 2 or 3 times and then they stick. And I was like, well, why do you think you have a bad memory? He's like, well, I'm studying in college at the minute and I can't take my notes in. My memory's so bad. So I was like, well, you have a formula that proves you don't have a bad memory. What would happen if you take that exact formula and put them into your notes? What if you read them 2 or 3 times and listened to them back? He's like, fuck, yeah, actually, that would work. And how would that feel? So associate the feeling with it. And then like he took another couple of examples to prove that he didn't have a bad memory. So then what his new belief was, I actually have a good memory when I sit down and read things 2 or 3 times and listen to it once. And I've actually a rock solid memory. So in the space of 40 minutes, he went from having a bad memory to having a rock solid memory just by switching how he was looking at things.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, I mean, you can literally flip what you're telling yourself, and as you say, the brain doesn't know the difference between um negative or kind of or positive self-talk. It just accepts what you're putting into it. And it's like it's kind of strange when you wouldn't knowingly put junk food into your body and think that this will give me a six-pack. Do you know what I mean? So why put the negative stuff into your head and think that I'll be okay coming out of that? It's kind of it's mad, isn't it, really?
Trust me, I've been putting plenty of pizzas into the body over the years, hoping for a six-pack.
Be great if that's the way it worked, wouldn't it? So do you want to talk a bit more about the kind of work that you do? I mean, how I came across you, was the Facebook group you have. Do you want to talk about that kind of stuff and the solo run and all that kind of stuff that you're doing?
Solo runs probably, I started that maybe a year ago. So it was going to be a 5-page workbook, a free downloadable. I thought in my head 5 pages, like just instructions and an exercise. So like a CBT exercise to deal with anxiety in a social setting, maybe an NLP visualization resource, just 2 or 3 resources that was literally going to take me the guts of 2 hours to do. And I remember writing it actually now, just while you asked me that question, like there was something about, because I still have that first ever draft, like I have the 10 or 12 drafts that it kind of became. There was something about Rocky and taking hits. And I started writing and I showed that paragraph to Catherine out in the balcony, and she's like, Jesus, that reads well. So I started writing another bit. And as I was writing, I kind of got a massive shock myself, because it was the first time this was 2 years after I left Abu Dhabi, and it was the first time I admitted to myself or wrote down or acknowledged that that I was at the side of the road one night, nearly going to throw myself out on the side of the road. Like the whole experience came back to me, and it was almost as if I suppressed it or something. But I still didn't think anything of it till I gave it to my girlfriend, and she read it, and she was like, what the fuck's this about? And it was the first time I spoke about it then. And so the first time the book then became what it is. Like it's a short book. You'd get through it in an hour and a half. Or if you're like me reading, it would take you a week. But there is resources through it and exercises and stuff. So it kind of like I tell my own story, but not my own story. I tell my own kind of challenges. Like when I was living in Dubai, like going through months of, we live in a high-rise building. There's mirrors everywhere in the elevator. Like I'd always have to stare at my shoes. I couldn't face looking at myself in the mirror, like no matter what was going on. Like, but I didn't even think that was a big deal until I took a step back. And just exercises and how to deal with that, exercises of like when I was out socializing, like what would be going through my head, like of panicking, and the inner critic just talking, and how to deal with that. So it essentially is a resource book, but can I share examples of my personal experiences and kind of what helped me? So I was actually quite happy with that. Like, yeah, I remember I was going to keep writing, and I just like kind of grew impatient. I was like, no, just get this out, get this finished. Like, because I was just like constantly at it. But yeah, I have it written down. There'll be another one coming at some stage, a proper one. But maybe now feedback I got, and like I like short books. Like my favorite books are Robin Sharma's books, especially his last two books. And they're thick books, and that puts me off. But each chapter is 1 or 2 pages, and that pulls me in, because if I know I just have to read 2 pages and that's a chapter, it's like an achievement to me. Now I would read maybe 20 chapters, but see, if it was one chapter of 20 pages, I wouldn't be able to read it. So like maybe a lot of people like that short style of book. I certainly do. So I guess it's just all trial and error. Um, but then on the coaching side of things, yeah, it kind of started off just one-on-one coaching, um, and that's kind of that's my baby. Like I love it. Like you don't realize how much energy I get from it after each session. Like me and whoever I'm on with, like we're buzzing most times at the end of it, because it's all like, we're not counselors, we're not therapists, we're not psychiatrists. It's all solution focused, goal driven. Let's go. Let's take action. Um, so big believer in taking action, and everyone's always buzzing afterward, and that's great. And what I find most valuable from it, like I found that I was learning 1 or 2 really key things off each person I worked with after each session. And as that my awareness kind of came to that, it, like in a weird way, it's almost like they're telling you how you should, not how you should be living, but see if there's a thing called or the shadow self. Okay, there's a thing called the shadow self. I can't think off the top of my head. The guy who came up with this theory, if his name comes into my head during this, I'll go back to it. But so there's a lot of things that we suppress and we keep in the shadow. It's part of us, and it's maybe things we don't like, things we don't like about ourselves. We keep in our shadow. We don't address it, and they crop up from time to time. So people do a lot of shadow work to kind of address those things. But when clients are talking about, like, say, things like maybe mood swings or feeling down or something, and how they're going to deal with that, and like how we're talking about dealing with that, sometimes I really feel, if it's something from my shadow, I feel like that's the advice I'm getting to follow. So you kind of nearly have to raise your bar up, because if you're going to like best serve these people, you need to have your bar up, and you need to keep constantly raising that bar and making yourself better. Like there's no point me telling someone to get up in the morning and go for a 5 minute walk if I'm getting up in the morning and going straight on Instagram and then scratching my ass on the couch watching cartoons or something.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of it, isn't it? Is that you inevitably end up coaching yourself so that you're a good coach. That's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things so far from the classes I'm doing, is that obviously to be ready for coming out the other side and to start coaching people, you better make sure you're well coached yourself and are in good habits and stuff yourself.
But
So
and sorry, you'll see it yourself as you go. Like people who'll finish your course immediately, like there are people immediately claiming to be these gurus, the best in the business, whatever. Like I will never claim to be any better or any like better in mindset or anything than anyone who comes to me to work with me, because everyone's dealing with something, everyone's carrying their own crosses. I'm working on myself daily. I have to work on myself daily. I've no choice but to do that. But I enjoy sharing what is helping me and what I am working with other people to then help them. So like one thing I would never claim to be is this absolute genius who knows it all, because like you're learning every day. Like, and like I said there, I'm learning as much off any client as they're learning off me. And you know, their results are my results as well. Like that's how much I'm invested in them. Like, and I started doing group coaching and maybe corporate coaching and little things like that. But every time you get someone one-on-one for that hour or 2 hours, it's like taking a couple of Red Bulls or energy boosters. Hey, it's serious buzz.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you know what? Just to go back a bit, you know, when you're talking about the books you're reading there and stuff, because I was going to ask you about some of the sort of habits or kind of hooks almost to kind of stay in a positive mind frame, because books are a big thing for me. I do like me reading a lot. I'd be the person who would sit down and read the 20-page chapter, because it's like it's almost like a kind of meditative thing for me. Is like, I mean, I love having a bookshelf full of books I've yet to read. That's not like a daunting thing to me. It's that, you know, what's daunting to me is that when that starts to get empty and I go, shit, I haven't got anything to read, you know. So is there any other kind of positive things you have to sort of stay in a, you know, in a good mind frame in terms of habit and stuff in your free time?
Yeah, you know, like I remember probably this time last year, like I did a podcast, and you know, I sounded very textbook when I spoke about, you know, it was the very, yeah, you know, you need to get up early, you need to, like, yeah, you know, everyone will find their own fit. Like your best routine is the routine that works for you.
Mm.
um and like, you know, just what I thought about there when you said your bookshelf. Like my bookshelf's relatively small. I think maybe it's because I'm slow at reading, but I love audiobooks. Like if you can't read a book, listen to a book. Now I thought audiobooks was my making now, but when I went back to it, I can't highlight things in our audiobook. So I'm hopping over back through them. But a big thing I kind of realized this year was like, it's not about the size of your library. It's about like how many times have you read that one book? You know, I rather read one book and know it off by heart and have every golden nugget that I could possibly get from than read 10 books and not know what's really going on inside them in a way. Um, but in terms of habits, like exercise is just key for me. Exercise really is like, it's if I don't exercise, I'm a grumpy fucker, or like I wouldn't grumpy. I'm not myself, so I'm not good to be around. If that makes sense. Like so, I'm realizing quickly what I need to fill up my own cup before I kind of deal with anyone else, because otherwise I'm no good to anyone else. Um, and it's being positively selfish. Like if I know, say if I was going out with a group of people and I have to be half an hour late because I might just need to get another set of press up sit-ups or a run or something, and I'll happily do that, because for the whole night then I'll be a better version of myself than be fucking sitting there raging that I didn't do a bit of exercise. Um, like the habits that I have at the moment, just say starting 5 weeks ago, January 1st, 2022, like 5 a.m. club every morning, um, getting up, getting like half a liter of water as soon as I get up. And I've really started, and I'm not like, I used to say, yeah, I meditate, like, but I was meditating once a week or once every fortnight when I was looking back on it. Like, that's not really meditating. So I do make a conscious effort now of doing a meditation or breath work, meditation or breath work each morning. And I do stick to my writing in my journal, my gratitude and my affirmations. Now, everything I said there might sound airy fairy, wishy-washy to some people, and especially lads, because I know a lot of my clients who are men. When I mentioned that we're going to do a breathwork or meditation session at the beginning of our program or whatever it is, like there's a lot of what the fuck is he on about? Like, and as soon as they get it done, they realize, Jesus, that's the most calming feeling I've had in a while. It was the biggest distressors. Like I said to a guy last night, like, this is going to feel like smoking a joint. And
That'll
like
get him on
he
side,
did
and yeah.
have, well, I don't know. um, but he did have a real worry going into the session, because he's like, I don't like, I think what the story we tell ourselves of how, like, we heard of what meditating is growing up, like it was like this old guru or whatever it is. Like, it's, you know, the likes of Pat Divley and these people now are kind of making breath work and meditation a lot more, what would you call it, like new age or relevant or
Yeah, almost, I suppose, relatable, you know.
relatable. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and you know, like Pat Divley has a couple of podcasts there. They're 10 minutes. Like if you type in Pat Divley's meditations, he has 3 or 4 ones that are 10 minutes, and that suits me perfect in the morning, especially for anyone on the go. But you get, like, if you type into your Apple podcast or Spotify 2 minute meditation, you'll get a 2 minute meditation. So you can't tell me you don't have time to meditate. And now that's for people who know what meditating is. Like, for people who don't, give it a try, because there's like hundreds of different types of meditation. You might stumble upon something that actually works for you, and that goes for the breath work as well. The breath work is the most powerful thing ever. Like, your breath can change your state of mind. Your state of mind can change your breath. Like, if you're panicked and worried about something, your breath's shallow. If you control your breath, deep breathe, that'll change your state of mind to a relaxed state. So it can work for you both ways in any given situation. Um, so I don't know if I'm doing the breath work and meditation justice there, but I would love to go into it a lot more, you know, on another day.
Yeah, well, it is. I think it's. I mean, the point that it's useful and beneficial is obviously relevant. Like, I mean, I find out myself, because I do it every morning, meditate myself as well, and I'm trying to do it in the evening as well, a second time, at the moment. But definitely doing it in the morning, every morning, and having a routine around it is, I find, really beneficial. And you just kind of go out with this, you know, just clear-headedness and calmness then that you wouldn't have gone out with before, and where before you would have gone out kind of worrying about what might happen, or I have to do this, or, you know, things like that. But
You're
it's definitely
you're
something
going
that,
out in flight mode rather than fight mode. You know, you're not
yeah,
rushing into your day and attacking it. You're kind of strolling into it, and you have control of it.
yeah, definitely, yeah. But it's definitely something that takes a lot of practice, though. You know, it's kind of a weird concept to think that sitting and being still, you know, is something that takes practice. But I mean, it is very hard when you first do it and you have no experience of it and you don't know, you know. And I think people find it, especially with phones now and social media and everything else, it is hard to sit still and just think about nothing. And after 30 seconds of that, the first time I did it, it was like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I supposed to be thinking of, something specific, or not thinking of something? But then if you try to clear your head, something always comes into it, and I don't know how to deal with that, you know. So it's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. But now I can much easier sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and do it, and then think, right, what's the next thing to do, you know.
Well, I
Um,
guess it's like anything. Everything's hard at the beginning. Like, and like, I don't know if I'm giving bad references here to maybe a younger age group. Like describing the breath work as smoking something. That's not what I'm saying. But I did describe trying meditation to someone as, remember the first time you had a pint of Guinness, you didn't like it, but now you love it because you tried it a few more times. You know, just give it a go. Like.
yeah, well, I mean, you know, we mentioned the word relatable. I think that's definitely one way that people can relate to that. um, do you want to talk a little bit about the 30-day challenge there from recently? I mean, you know, as you know, I did it. So it's a WhatsApp group that you set up. Do you want to tell people about what was involved in the challenge, and kind of how you came up with it?
I'm delighted you brought that up, because my mum actually asked me today who were the 4 people that did the challenge without any strikes, and I couldn't think of the fourth person, and it was you. So the 40-day or the 30-day challenge is obviously a 30-day challenge. 2 liters of water per day, one workout a day, one random act of kindness a day, which was my favorite one. No alcohol, no cigarettes, and read one chapter of a book each day. I think that was all the components of it. So I started that last April, May, whatever, and just kind of to trial and error. But there was so many people wanted to join in. Now it's a work in progress. So the one that you're after doing was the third one. So I'm always open to like feedback off the group members, because the first two, so the deal was 3 strikes and you're out. That's not one day is a strike. That means if you miss your water and you did everything else, that's 1 strike. So you could strike out in 1 day. So it was kind of a little bit kind of tough, and like I had a lot of kind of kickback on that, like people saying it's too tough. I'm like, well, it's a challenge. Like, if you didn't want to go into the challenge, don't join the challenge. Like, the challenge for a reason. But I did realize that kicking people out, say after 2 or 3 days or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks for getting their strike, sure, the first thing they're going to do is say, well, fuck it, and just go back to their old habits. So what I did this time was, I didn't kick anyone out. I gave them the option. I said, look, you'd had your 3 strikes, but if you want to stay in the group, you can stay ticking away whatever you want to take away. Or if you want to leave the group and come up with your own challenge, you can stay accountable to me. So that kind of still gives you hope and still kind of tries to implement good habits into your day. Now, my personal experience of the challenge, like if I didn't read in the morning, it was tight to get it in the evening. If you had a long day at work and you came home and sat down, and that tiredness gets you, like all you want to do is maybe get a bar of chocolate from the fridge, and you're like, Jesus, and I still have to go to the gym and I'm fucked here. But then everyone has to tick in at the end of each day. There's 6 green ticks, and like seeing those ticks coming through gives you that kind of sense of responsibility to the group, and that accountability that I have to send my ticks in as well. Like if someone else is going to the well, I'll go to the well too. And it kind of promoted a little bit of honesty as well, because like you were doing the challenge, so was I, but I didn't care about anyone else finishing the tasks. It was all on me, and you'd be the same. But then it's just being honest to put in the group, because if I was not doing any of it and just taking it off in the group each day, like what am I proving? What am I proving to myself here? No one else knows what I'm doing. No one else cares. So it's kind of on everyone to like hold their own candle here and get it done. So I don't know, what was your experience of being in the challenge?
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously it was tough, and especially at first. But the idea of being in the group, I think, was really good, because the way I kind of looked at it was, you mentioned the word accountability, and that's something we talk about a lot in, my coaching classes and stuff, is having accountability to yourself. It's okay to set a goal or set what you want to do, but you've got to find ways to hold yourself accountable to that, because it's easy to start saying, I'm not bothered, it's too hard, I'll just go back to what I was doing. So the idea of being in the group, to me, it was kind of, as you say, obviously nobody else knows what I'm doing or whether I'm doing this or not, but it's almost that guilt then of like, do I really want to throw in the 6 ticks if I haven't done them, or if I've only done 3? Even though nobody's going to call me out because they don't know what whether I'm doing it or not. It just makes you, I think, really think about, well, being honest to yourself and being accountable to yourself. And what I really liked about it as well was the kind of mix of things involved in it. It wasn't one of these, it wasn't like do 50 press ups and a 5-mile run every day or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't all focused on like physical exercise or all on one kind of particular aspect. I think it was a good range of kind of things that gets you into good habits in lots of different areas. Like the kindness one you mentioned, obviously makes you think about how can I kind of go out of my way on some days to do something, or what can I define as an act of kindness? It's 6 o'clock in the evening now. I haven't actually done anything that I can define as an act of kindness. So can I go and find it now? So it pushes you in that way as well. And I think it was just a really good mix of different things,
Yeah, and like the random act of kindness, that could have been as small as smiling at someone, hey, or holding the door for someone. But like, there was someone in the group who sold their car to pay off someone else's debt, and like there was that kind of acts of kindness to it. Now, like a random act of kindness is not a random act of kindness if you have to get um if you have to share that you've done that random act of kindness to
Yeah.
get your own whatever from it. That's not a random act of kindness if you're telling people you've done that random act of kindness. But like it just showed you that like a lot of things are possible. Like I used to beat myself up a lot for missing the gym or whatever, but like there was a man in a hospital bed about to get a big surgery, but he got 2 liter bottles of water and he was doing arm curls for half an hour just to count as his exercise. There was like people who had COVID who couldn't leave their room, like watching Netflix, just maybe doing half an hour of like X sit-ups or whatever. There was people who didn't have books or maybe it was like 10 to 12 and they just throw on an audio book, and like you found little hacks around it as well. Like an audio book, you'd get a chapter in 10 minutes to take the pressure off you. Like it wasn't meant to be a weight loss challenge. A lot of people lost a hell of a lot of weight, and I imagine that's just from the water and the clean eating. But and like yeah, it was hard, but I would never promote that on a daily, day to day for your whole year, because like is the word sustaining from anything only promotes addiction to it. So if you sustain yourself from chocolate for the whole week, on Sunday when you get chocolate, you're going to eat the whole chocolate or the whole box of chocolates. If you stay off the beer for a month, so at the end of the month you're more than likely going to do a session or a 2-day bender. Like, so you're as well to like fill up your cup, do your bit of exercise, do your little bits through the day, and have your bit of chocolate at the end of the day, or have your beer on a Friday. Like, it's all about balance. Like, balance was a massive thing that's been missing in my life for years, and it's definitely still nowhere near where it has to be. Like, it's a big flaw. I'll either work too hard or not work too hard. Either way, like, it's my big thing for this year is finding balance and my own way of things. So like the goal of the challenge was to, when you're finished the challenge, that in yourself that you did your 6 ticks every day. And like one day it was really hard, but you did it. One day, like, you nearly ate that chocolate bar, but you didn't. One day you were going to say, fuck it, I'm not going to the gym, but you did it. So like for the rest of the year, when something hard comes up, you have that in the bank. You have evidence to prove that you can say, fuck it, no, I'm going to do this, because you did it in January 6 times harder or whatever. So if everyone just picked one thing for the rest of the year, they know they're going to stick with it. Like, and especially then, you're kicking off your new year basically in February. So that kind of New Year's resolution crack is out the window, but you are implementing good habits into your routine.
Yeah, it's so true. And like one of the big things I took from it as well was that the motivation to keep going on the days where, like you say, it's so tempting to just say fuck it and throw the towel in, and I can't do this for another 2 weeks or whatever. But what you end up thinking is, if I can just get through this 30 days and say that, just to myself, not to anybody else, that I completed this challenge. When I then come February, or come out the other side of this challenge, when I then set new habits or routines for myself, as you say, I've done this 6 times harder. So this, whatever habit now I'm about to set for myself, should be easy, really. I can do my own version of that 30-day challenge, maybe, where it's only half the stuff, or it's just, it's my version of it. And I should be well able to do it because I've done this, a much harder challenge. And then it puts you in this mindset of, I can get stuff done. And it's, and it's not about proving it to anybody else. It's, as you say, it's for yourself. And, and when you mentioned New Year's resolution as well, that's something that bugs me a lot when people talk about that, is because it always ends up falling away by February, or and then you end up setting the same ones for the following year, and it's kind of, what's the point of that? It's kind of, do what you can, do what you can now, scale it down maybe, or or do it in March, or do it in June or whatever, because the New Year's thing is, you're just putting on the long finger and putting it off. And so I found, that the 30-day thing was great for mindset overall, and great for because another thing we talk a lot about in class is having a success bank. So every day or every week, adding something into your success bank. It could be even a small little thing. But even if you have a bad day, throw in that, well, I went on a walk today, or, I went on a 5K run, or whatever it is. Just so that you have something to look back on and go, well, I can do it. That was a tough day, I remember, but I did it, and it's, you're kind of not focusing on the negative stuff. You're looking back on positive stuff.
Yeah, like and that kind of goes back to gratitude. Like, so when I do my gratitude in the morning, I kind of do a reflection on the previous day to kind of guide my gratitude, because a lot of people, when they're doing it after 4 or 5 days, they're just saying the same thing over. Like I did there, what are we now, on the 5th? So 4 or 5 days ago, I just had January review. So I just wrote down everything good that happened in January. And I was blown away of the things. They were little tiny things that I remembered. Like, some of them were big things, but like a lot of it were small things. But those are the things, when Christmas comes around next year, when you're looking at your year review, you're gonna have 12 pages of all these good things that happened. Because again, your mind always kind of wanders towards the negative stuff. Like, I'll use the poker player as an example. A poker player will always tell you their bad beat story when they lost a massive hand, but they're not fit to tell you when they won that big hand or good hands they played. It's, oh, do you want to hear a bad beat story? Because people focus on the negative for some reason. And just by writing down the good things or doing your gratitude, and it is a good reminder. And your success bank, like I like to call it, the cookie jar as well. Like, fill that up as much as you can, even if it was in your head. But we have an empty jar here. I don't know what was in it beforehand. And it was actually a client of mine who told me that he's writing down like happy moments as they come every now and again, might be big or small, and he just fucks it into the jar. And anytime he's feeling a wee bit low, he might open it up, or he might leave it to the end of the year and just start picking them apart. Like, and that's kind of boosting his happiness. Because like on the gratitude side of things, it's proven, scientifically proven, that if you practice gratitude each day, it immediately gives you a spike in your happiness by 50 to 60%. Like, Jesus, everyone could do with that. Like, so why not just fucking write down 3 things or say it in your head?
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing turnaround, and it's such a powerful thing. And yeah, there's, everybody could stand to benefit from that. And I think, like, because you mentioned earlier about the meditation thing, looking up a 2 minute meditation on Spotify or whatever, and nobody can have the excuse of, I don't have time for that. It's probably a similar thing with this, where, I don't have time to write that down. Like, you do, you're just telling yourself you haven't got it. It's about how you use your time and making time to include these things. I mean, if you add it up, and I'm the same, if you added up the amount of time people spent looking at their phone throughout the day, the amount of time you get back, and I'm so bad for it, the amount of time you get back would be unreal.
You took the words out of my mouth. Any person who's mentioned to me this year, I don't have time, I tell them to take their phone out of their pocket. They're like, why? Take it out. I'm like, show me your screen time. And it's usually 14 or 15 hours. Like,
It's madness, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and when you were talking earlier about, you mentioned Paul Merson, because talking about like having bad habits and stuff. I really like his story a lot, but talking about the power of the mind, I was listening to him talking. I think it was on. They made a documentary about it. I think he spoke with Neil Ruddock, I think it was, and
yeah.
But he was talking about his gambling getting so bad that he actually ended up trying to break his fingers so that he couldn't dial the phone to place bets over the phone. His turnaround is unreal. I always like kind of taking sort of inspiration from people like him and their kind of stories. Tyson Fury is another one. the amount of weight he put on was ridiculous, like 28 stone, I think he got to, before turning it back around. And, you know, like he'd be living the life in Vegas and like shoveling pints into himself, you know, and this is after beating Klitschko and becoming world champion. And then he just, you know, it just all went downhill.
Yeah, I love Fury's story, like I really do. Like, and I started going to Muay Thai there this week, and like I'm probably a little bit jiggly still from Christmas, but you know, I'm not 26 stone over it. But like I literally was boxing, and I, you know, I could feel the belly jiggling a bit, and all I thought about was Tyson Fury and Ricky Hatton. I'm like, how the fuck do you lose that weight after putting it all on again? Like, it's so hard. Like, this is so hard. So, like, people, like, it's okay sitting on the couch. Like, people have this thing in their head, like, oh yeah, I could climb Everest, no bother, while they're comfortable sitting on the couch with a hot water bottle and a cup of tea, eating chocolates. But like, put themselves at the bottom of Everest, like, you know, it's a different story. Like, so people don't realize how hard these people actually put in the hours they actually put in to make change. And it's not even, from looking at Ricky Hatton and Tyson Fury and anyone who's made a change, it's not that they just became that success or whatever change overnight. Like, and it's not that it was anything difficult really as well. It's the small things. It's the, okay, did you show up for yourself today? Are you being the best version of, like, are you getting up when you're saying you're getting up? Are you getting your liter of water? Are you making that food choice? It's like, it's all the tiny little things that's moving the needle. Like, it's, people are expecting immediate results. Like, people are like, oh, I've a belly on me. Who's the best PT? You know, I need to lose this in a week or a month or whatever. It's not about losing it in a month. It's about the trajectory. Like, if you stop worrying about results and just look at, if your trajectory is going in the right way, then the results are coming regardless. But if you're just looking for results, your trajectory is not going to be, it's going to be fluctuating up and down, and you're never going to get that desired result. So I'm kind of going on a tangent, but what I'm trying to put across is, like, the small things done right is high performance, or is change, if you get me.
Yeah, completely. And like, I mean, I read Fury's book there about 4 or 5 months ago, and what strikes you is not even the big glamorous kind of fights, or it's not beating Wilder, or it's not, you know, it's not the belts or anything like that. It's the what makes it relatable is the small changes he makes. Is that here's this guy who's like complete way overweight, like, and going out every night and drinking himself into oblivion almost, and waking up and then he doesn't know where he is. To come from that back to just even to be able to go into a boxing gym and spar is an unbelievable turnaround. Forget the big fights themselves, you know. So that's what makes it relatable, is those changes over time, where he works his way back to kind of a version of himself that he can recognize, and then progress from there.
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, I'm conscious of time now, so do you want to just
don't be conscious of time, you're grand.
you want to enjoy your Friday night and your weekend. Do you want to just tell people, anyone who's listening, that how they can, you know, look up your pages and stuff like that on social media, just if they want to find out more about you?
Yeah, so at the minute, probably the main place that I've been kind of putting my work up is on Instagram, Jonathan_Harkin. I have my Facebook page, but then I have a Facebook group, Jonathan Harkin Mindset Coach. And in the next week or two, I'll be launching jonathanharkin.com. So that'll be my website, which will have all my coaching information, free resources, features that I've been on, just all the information about things like breath work, coaching, everything will be on there. That if anyone needs to reach out, you'll find me at jonathanharkin.com. But at the moment, any of my social media platforms, and I'm very, very easy to get a hold of. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Great stuff. I'll put the link to your Instagram and all that stuff as well in the description of this episode anyway. So I could probably talk to you for another 6 hours about all that stuff, but we'll leave it there. Thanks a million for taking the time. I'll chat to you for another couple of minutes now after I stop recording. Thanks for coming on, and thanks to everyone for listening.